Psalm 91 morning prayer for protection, peace, and strength in uncertain times. Sometimes magic doesn't look like sparks or spells. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as breath, memory, and hope, slipping into ordinary moments when life feels unbearable. It is the kind of magic that appears at kitchen tables, in dim apartments, and in the silence before dawn, where weary hearts search for meaning. This magic does not deny pain. It acknowledges it, then transforms it. It turns fear into courage, exhaustion into endurance, and loneliness into a sense of being seen. In a world filled with noise, uncertainty, and relentless pressure, this unseen magic offers shelter. It gathers scattered thoughts, steadies trembling hands, and whispers that help is closer than it seems. It invites the soul to pause, to believe that protection can exist even amid chaos. This is not fantasy magic, but the kind that restores the human spirit, reminding us that even broken days can hold wonder and grace. Before the prayer begins, there is a man named Daniel, a 62-year-old warehouse worker living on the edge of a fading Midwestern town. His knees ache from decades of labor, his savings are thin, and the news on his small television speaks endlessly of rising prices, violence, and uncertainty. In the quiet of his small apartment, he opens Psalm 91 and reads it slowly, almost trembling. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Daniel whispers that the Lord is his refuge and his fortress, his God in whom he trusts, because there is nowhere else to turn. Bills stack on the kitchen table like silent threats. His job hours have been cut. Friends have moved away or passed on. Yet the psalm reminds him that the Lord saves from hidden traps and unseen dangers, from sickness that moves through communities and fear that stalks the night. Daniel clings to the promise that under God's wings there is refuge, that faithfulness is a shield when the world feels cruel and unforgiving. Outside, sirens echo and headlines warn of violence, disease, and division. 1,000 troubles seem to fall on every side, yet the psalm declares they will not come near those who make the Most High their dwelling. Angels are commanded to guard each step, to keep even tired feet from stumbling on unseen stones. The promise speaks of strength over lions and serpents, of victory over forces meant to destroy hope. Then the prayer begins. Heavenly Father, Daniel stands weary and overwhelmed, carrying the weight of a nation's anxiety on aging shoulders. Still, he believes that in God's presence there is peace beyond understanding. He longs to live there, far from the relentless pressure of modern life. He asks not for escape, but for shelter, a permanent place of rest where fear cannot follow. In that quiet room, he lays down every burden, every regret, every uncertainty. Though the world has been harsh and unkind, he trusts the Lord as his protector, his strong fortress, the only place he can turn when everything else has failed. In the quiet continuation of that unseen magic, there is a woman named Margaret, 71 years old, living alone in a narrow townhouse outside Cleveland, Ohio. Her hands tremble slightly as she folds laundry she can barely afford to wash anymore. Her husband passed years ago, her children live states away, and the world now feels faster, harsher, and less forgiving than it once did. Rising grocery prices, medical bills, and endless headlines about violence and division weigh heavily on her spirit. Yet in the middle of all this, she clings to one unchanging truth. The Lord's love for her is steadfast and unwavering. Margaret speaks these words aloud because silence makes the loneliness louder. She chooses to surrender every worry to the Lord, trusting that his unfailing love still watches over her, even when life feels cruel and indifferent. This love, she believes, shields her from harm and gently guides her forward when her strength is gone. Each day brings unseen dangers, physical, emotional, and spiritual, from scam phone calls targeting seniors, to fear-driven news cycles, to the quiet despair that creeps in during long nights. She knows she cannot comprehend every threat, but she trusts that nothing escapes the Lord's sight. She asks for deliverance from dangers she cannot see, from temptation to give up, from deceit that preys on vulnerability, and from the slow erosion of hope. She asks the Lord to guide her steps through a world that feels increasingly hostile, to help her avoid choices made out of fear rather than faith. She pleads for wisdom to replace confusion and for grace to steady her when anxiety clouds her judgment. With trembling resolve, she places her entire life into his hands, believing he will lead her away from danger and towards safety, even if the path is unclear. Margaret calls the Lord her shepherd because she feels small and exposed, like a sheep in a noisy, crowded world. She trusts that wherever he leads, even through hardship, there will still be moments of rest. She imagines being guided to still waters and green pastures, places of quiet relief far removed from sirens, debt collectors, and sleepless nights. She asks to be covered like a fragile bird beneath protective wings, shielded from a world that no longer feels gentle. When fear tightens in her chest, she reminds herself that refuge exists in truth, not in headlines or statistics. The Lord's promises are not distant words, but living assurances that speak louder than doubt. She asks that those promises become her armor against anxiety, against the relentless inner voice that tells her she has been forgotten. She asks for her heart to be guarded, for rest to replace worry, and for peace to settle where fear once ruled. In this quiet surrender, Margaret finds the magic she cannot explain. She is still poor, still aging, still alone. But she is held, and in the presence of the Lord, that is enough to face another day. As the quiet magic of surrender continues, the focus shifts to Robert, a 58-year-old night security guard living on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. His life has become a cycle of long shifts, restless sleep, and constant uncertainty. Rising rent, medical debt from a recent hospital visit, and the fear of layoffs haunt him daily. His body is tired, his spirit worn thin, and many nights he sits alone in his car after work, unsure if he has the strength to face another day. In these moments, Robert asks the Lord to be his strength, because life feels far too heavy to carry alone. Each day brings new trials he never anticipated. One week it is a sudden bill he cannot pay, the next it is news of violence, division, and instability flooding his phone. He feels surrounded by uncertainty, unsure which direction is safe anymore. Robert knows he cannot navigate these challenges by his own wisdom or power. He needs guidance, clarity, and protection because the obstacles ahead feel relentless and unforgiving. The nights are the hardest. When the city grows quiet and the desert air cools, his mind begins to race. Fear slips in during the stillness, whispering questions about the future, about aging, about whether anyone would notice if he fell apart. In the darkness, worries feel louder and heavier. He asks the Lord to shine light into his heart during these moments, to push back the fear and replace it with peace that steadies his breathing and calms his thoughts. When morning comes, the fear does not disappear. It simply changes shape. As Robert steps into the busyness of the day, he feels the pressure of temptations, frustrations, and unexpected challenges hitting him without warning. A rude supervisor, a reckless driver, a sudden health scare, or a moment of weakness could easily knock him off balance. He asks the Lord to shield him from these arrows that strike during daylight hours, to guard his heart and mind when life attacks without mercy. He longs to walk through each day with confidence, not because circumstances improve, but because the Lord's presence goes with him. Robert asks to be protected at all times, whether danger hides in the quiet of the night or strikes openly in the brightness of day. He He wants that protection to be a constant reminder that he is not abandoned, even when society feels indifferent and the world seems chaotic. Though fear often tries to take root, he refuses to let it rule his heart. He clings to the belief that the Lord's protection surrounds him like a shield that cannot be broken. Storms may rage, and dangers may feel overwhelming, but Robert chooses to trust that he is being kept safe. He finds comfort in knowing that he is watched over, that no wave is too high and no wind too strong for the Lord to handle. In a nation filled with tension, injustice, and unanswered questions, Robert struggles with discouragement. He sees wrongdoing go unpunished and feels anger rising when it seems like those who act without integrity continue to succeed. Yet he resists taking matters into his own hands. He trusts the Lord's justice, believing that nothing is unseen and that every wrong will be addressed in perfect time. Rather than living consumed by bitterness, Robert chooses to dwell in the presence of the Lord. He makes the Lord his refuge, not because life is easy, but because it is hard. In that refuge, he finds an anchor, a safe harbor when everything else feels unstable. Even in turmoil, even when answers do not come, he discovers peace in knowing he does not face the storm alone. After the long nights and restless days, the story turns to Evelyn, a 66-year-old grandmother living in a small rented duplex outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her life has been shaped by responsibility more than rest. She works part-time at a grocery store to supplement a modest Social Security check, caring for her teenage grandson after her daughter's sudden passing. The future feels uncertain, and most days she cannot see the path ahead. Yet in the middle of that uncertainty, Evelyn finds the strength to trust in the Lord's plan, even when clarity feels far away. She watches the news while folding worn clothes, hearing about rising illness, economic strain, and growing fear across the country. Crime feels closer to home. Medical costs rise faster than her paycheck. Some nights, she lies awake wondering how she will protect her family if something goes wrong. Still, she holds on to the belief that the Lord is guiding her, even when she cannot see how justice will unfold or when righteousness feels delayed. She believes that what is right will eventually rise like the dawn, even in a world that feels dark. Evelyn asks the Lord to keep her focus steady, not pulled apart by constant distractions, social media fear, or endless bad news. She knows how easily worry can consume her thoughts. Instead, she returns her attention to the one place she finds everything she needs. In a nation struggling with division and uncertainty, she chooses faith over panic, even when it costs her sleep. Her prayers are simple but heavy. She asks that no evil would come near her or her loved ones, that no harm would touch the small home where 3 generations once laughed and where she now fights to hold things together. She prays for divine protection over every detail of her life, over her family, her friends, and even neighbors she barely knows. She asks for safety from illness, accidents, and the invisible dangers that seem to linger everywhere in modern life. Evelyn stands firmly on the promise that the Lord is her protector, her shield, and her strong tower. She believes that no evil will overtake her household, not because life is easy, but because she trusts the one who watches over her with loving care. When fear tries to creep in, she reminds herself that she is not alone, that the Lord is faithful to every promise spoken. There is comfort in believing that angels have been commanded to guard her steps. When she stumbles under exhaustion, when grief resurfaces without warning, she imagines unseen hands lifting her, keeping her from falling completely. These heavenly messengers are reminders of a love far greater than what she can see or fully understand. Even in the smallest moments, when she locks the door at night or drives through unfamiliar streets, she believes she is being watched over. Evelyn is grateful for that protection. She asks for the awareness to walk confidently, not recklessly, knowing she is guarded. She believes that the Lord has given her strength to overcome every challenge, whether it comes as physical danger, emotional exhaustion, or spiritual weariness. Life has not been kind to her, but she refuses to see herself as defeated. She knows she is more than a conqueror, not because she feels strong, but because she trusts that the Lord's strength will carry her through. She is not merely receiving protection passively. She is choosing faith daily, standing firm, believing that even in a broken world, she is held, guarded, and never abandoned. The story now centers on Thomas, a 54-year-old former factory worker living in a small, aging trailer outside Dayton, Ohio. His life took a sharp turn when the plant he worked at for nearly 3 decades shut its doors without warning. Since then, he has struggled to find steady work, bouncing between short-term jobs that barely cover rent, utilities, and the medications he needs for chronic back pain. The loss of purpose has weighed on him just as heavily as the financial strain. Some days, it feels as though life itself is trying to push him down. Yet Thomas refuses to see himself as defeated. Slowly, painfully, he has come to understand that he is not meant to be a passive observer in his own story. He believes he is meant to be an active participant in the victory the Lord has promised. Though fear once ruled his decisions, he now chooses to stand firm in the authority he believes has been given to him. The threats that once intimidated him, failure, rejection, shame, no longer hold the same power over his heart. There are mornings when his body aches and his future feels uncertain, but Thomas finds courage to face each challenge head-on. He believes that the strength carrying him forward is not his own. In a country where layoffs, rising costs, and health concerns are daily realities, he clings to the belief that the Lord's strength has become his strength. With that assurance, he dares to believe he can keep going, even when the odds feel stacked against him. Thomas has set his love firmly on the Lord, not because life has been easy, but because it has been relentlessly hard. He trusts that deliverance will come, even if it arrives differently than he expects. He believes the Lord sees his quiet faith, his whispered prayers spoken in the dark, and responds not with indifference, but with care and honor. He asks to be lifted up, not for recognition or status, but so his life can reflect the goodness of the one who rescues him. He remembers the times he called on the Lord in desperation, sitting alone in his truck after another rejection letter, wondering how he would survive. Each time, he found the strength to rise again. That history of answered prayers gives him confidence that the Lord will continue to be present in every trial, guiding him through and bringing him out with dignity intact. The greatest blessing in Thomas's life is not comfort or success, but the presence of the Lord walking with him through uncertainty. He asks not merely for a long life, but for a life filled with meaning, peace, and purpose. He longs to see salvation at work in every area of his existence, in strained relationships, in fragile health, in the search for stability, and in his spiritual growth. As each day unfolds, Thomas tries to remain aware of that presence, grateful for small provisions and quiet moments of peace. Even in hardship, he chooses joy rooted in the knowledge that he is loved. He rests in the promises he holds dear, trusting that the Lord is with him now and forever. With a heart still bruised but hopeful, Thomas gives thanks for life, for grace, and for the assurance of salvation in Jesus Christ. And if this prayer resonates with someone listening, he hopes they will whisper Amen, trusting that every blessing spoken finds its way into waiting hearts.